You're listening to the Tumbling Saber Podcast, a member of the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network. Check us out on the web at starwarscommonwealth.com, on iTunes, Facebook, and Twitter, and take your first step into a larger world. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 70, I'm jumping the gun here, episode 69 of the Tumbling Saber Podcast. I'm Kyle.
I'm Corey.
And I can count.
I'm just so looking forward to Celebration, even though I'm not going, because I know, we all know what's coming down the pipe. We know that we're just going to get spoiled with news to talk about. But let's not race too far ahead here. We're at episode 69. Celebration is 2 weeks away. Less than 2 weeks away when this podcast will drop. Rogue One on Blu-ray is just 2 short days away. All things are coming up here for Star Wars fans. But first, let's do our tradition here. Let's do our little weekly catch-up. It's been a while since we've spoken. Corey, how you doing?
I'm doing fine.
You sound better than last week.
Yeah, I had a bit of the sniffles last week, but definitely doing a lot better now that I found some of the 40th anniversary edition toys out there, and my Thrawn character. Booyah.
Very cool. We'll talk about that more later, hopefully if we get a chance. James, what's going on with you?
I picked up Corey's sniffles, and my whole house is a little under the weather, but spirits are up, and podcasting is a good way to forget about that nonsense.
Is it ever? It keeps us busy and engaged in the community, which I love. Love the Commonwealth and all the people that keep listening to us and helping us along here.
I got to say, Corey, I told my dad you bought a boat, and he's an ex-boat owner. We owned a couple boats growing up, and he laughed, and he laughed, and he laughed.
Nice. Yeah,
mostly warm memories, mostly like happy. He was like, I love my boat, but oh boy, a boat. Have you thought of a name yet?
Yeah, we I think we agreed upon a name. It's going to be fandom related as well, not necessarily. I couldn't get the agreement on the Star Wars name. The one that I was kind of sticking with was the Shadowcaster, but that didn't happen. So it's going to be Serenity.
Nice.
Yeah, like from Firefly.
It's equal parts tribute and fluffy.
And who knows?
That's
Maybe next year we'll call it Serenity Now.
Oh, the over-under on that is less than a year. By end of summer, I think you'll be saying Serenity Now.
Yeah, we'll see.
Although it's a new boat. It's a new boat. I don't think you'll have too many maintenance problems right off the hop.
No, you know what's sweet about that too? The lady was nice enough to tell us. Like she's like, yeah, I was digging through the file. It turns out we have coverage till through 2019 on all warranty till 2019 anyhow.
Nice.
Like sweet.
Don't hit anything.
You mean you didn't know that when you bought the boat?
They didn't even really know that. She was just like, because she did some digging, she found that out. It was just
you should have asked that. That's one of the first 3 questions you should be asking.
Well, they kind of explained it at the beginning that it's just an anonymous seller selling the boat, just stores it there, and they're trying to sell it for him. I guess they take a small cut or whatever, but
that's fine. How much is it? How many miles on the motor? Is there a warranty? Those are the questions.
Yeah.
Stop with your logic.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, I'm glad that you're at least covered partially with this warranty for a couple more years.
Well, we did talk about that because we did talk about that at the beginning, but the guy was like, "Yeah, no, it's like this guy's boat, blah blah blah." But anyway, the girl that did the credit stuff, she was the one who had found it somewhere. I don't know.
The only thing better to this boat story, which is about a month old now or so, is if you had actually bought the boat this weekend on April Fool's weekend. That would have been the only better thing.
Yeah, it's kind of a letdown, eh? Actually, I got you pretty good. That was pretty funny.
It would have, it was a good intention. It would have worked, except, so, the quick background is I'm driving around with my kids, and my phone rings, and as my cell phone rings in my car, I put it on speaker, which is always a bad call because the cell phone speakers stink, and I don't have Bluetooth in my old Jeep, so I'm trying to listen over the engine noise, over chattering kids, and all I hear is just like static through the speaker. I can't tell if it's someone speaking to me in English or French. I'm just like, what? What are you saying? I can't hear you. Blah, 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 blah. I don't understand a word you're saying. You're going to have to start over. And the person just keeps talking over me. And I was like, what? I can't forget this. And I was just getting super frustrated. And then all I hear at the end is, oh, you've been had by prankdoll.com. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense, I guess. But I still don't know what the call was about.
Yeah, it's a hard one to understand. That's the best part about that one is that it's really, it's someone who's Chinese and they're saying that like they're asking you about a delivery and stuff, but it's so well timed that it's really hard to pinpoint that it's automated. You know, like a lot of them are very easily detectable, but this one's a good one. Like I'm like 4 for 4 on this one so far.
Well, because you texted me about an hour later saying, how's your Chinese food? And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And that's where the joke falls apart. That's where the prank falls apart for you, because if I'd been like, oh, that was you bastard. But instead it was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't speak to anybody about Chinese food.
Well, actually you did, but you said it was your fault because you were listening to it on your speakerphone in your car.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. If I was at home and I could have just listened to it normally, I would have caught the whole joke. And I've been like, no, I didn't order Chinese food. Get out of here. I don't want your stuff. But nothing came through. So you get half points on the prank.
You know why it wouldn't have worked on me, Corey? Is because I would have wanted the Chinese food.
That too. I almost would have been like, really? Someone sent Chinese food here? Bring it.
Deal. Here's my address. Hurry up.
It's a good one. You guys should look it up anyhow. It's funny.
You remember when Snakes on a Plane did that? As a marketing promo, they had Samuel L. Jackson record, I don't know, a bunch of lines, and there was like a name recognition thing, so you could have Sam Jackson, quote unquote, call you, or anybody for that matter, and have them have him encourage you to go see Snakes on a mother bleeping plane. I think I did. I must have done it to you, Corey.
Oof.
I mean, this goes back, what, a decade now?
I don't know.
Anyway, I think Corey also got had by an April Fool's joke.
Buff.
You should have had a nice hard shell around you. We've already been through this type of prank before, but you fell for it again.
I didn't.
You did.
My wife's the one who No, I didn't. My wife's the one who introduced me. I said the exact same thing you said. I said to her, "This is fake news," and she's like, "No, it's not. This is like a very serious news source." And I'm like, "Okay, like let me read it." And I'm like, "There's something fishy about it." And then the first thing I said too was, "It would be on other news sites at this point," which it wasn't. And then she was like, "No," like she was convinced, you know. So then like maybe the next day after, like she had asked, she's like, "So, did you hear anything?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I talked to Kyle about it." And she's like, "Oh, so because Kyle says," and I'm like, "No," I'm like, it makes sense what he says, you know. And then turns out, like, also in the article too, that stands out that they were saying auditions would be taking place like April 1st. So
yeah.
Anyway,
well, the GIF replies you sent back to me belie the truth that you just told. But
that's funny.
People crying and running outdoors. No.
But it's because there was that glimmer of hope, you know. But
no, there was no hope. That's it. As soon as you let a glimmer of hope in, you bought it. Because especially you, the listeners now know you, and they know that you're such a cockeyed optimist that a glimmer of hope for you is just a whole world of hope.
It's all or nothing for Corey. That's how he lives.
No, it wasn't like that. Like I remember when my wife told me, it's like I didn't really even care. I was like, no, like this is not real news, you know. Like even though
people don't know what we're talking about. So what happened is that a local, a hyper local media outlet that I had never even heard of, posted a story on their site saying that episode 9 was going to be shooting some scenes here. And this, I mean, by here, I mean almost in our backyard. And I know Corey, you know Corey, we all know Corey, he got his hopes up just a smidge. And hoping that it would be true. No, this is not true at all. This is garbage.
At least I'll give you that. That is true. It was a smidge, a very small smidge. So much of a smidge that I didn't really care, but I was still like, like my ears were up a bit.
You still took the day off work.
Yeah, I was scouring the city.
And a 2-second Google search of the production company, quote unquote, that they were talking about would have solved your issue, because it was a Macedonian oil company that they were saying was the Lucasfilm subcontractor in Quebec. So yeah, total nonsense from the start. And they admitted to it. They were saying it was an April Fool's joke, which they launched like on the 29th or something.
Yeah, that's it. It was early. That's why they tried to throw people off. But I said the same thing. I was like, it's probably an April Fool's thing. But that's not. I call foul on that. You can't do an April Fool's joke 2 or 3 days early.
No, I don't mind them setting the hooks early. And Corey was definitely telling all the other people in line for the auditions that it was probably a joke.
Anyhow, I thought that was fun. Corey, just as much as we all like Star Wars to film in our backyards, it's probably not going to happen.
And even if it did happen too, though, like if it was in our area and you didn't manage to like land a small like background character role or something, like that would really suck.
It would. Yeah, it would. That would hurt a little bit.
Like, I think it would be more stressful than anything to know that it's filming here, and then it's like, okay, we have to do this. Like, how do we go about doing this, and then it not coming to fruition?
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, let's get this sucker on the road here. Let's talk some Star Wars news. This first bit, and I'll say up front that Star Wars Newsnet pretty much sponsors this episode today. They had a couple of really big stories over the last couple weeks, some of which is stuff we've spoken about before and doesn't seem all that earth-shattering. But we'll go to it anyway, because I think there's maybe some new angles here that we can take. So let's just get right to it. So they reported a couple weeks ago that 3 classic planets will be seen again in the sequel trilogy. And just getting right down to it, they're claiming that Tatooine, Endor, and Mustafar are all going to appear in either episodes 8 or 9. So we'll start at the top with Tatooine. And they're saying that the desert world might be the home of Luke Skywalker's Jedi Temple / Academy, which they saw burning down in The Force Back. And this doesn't make sense to me. Like, first of all, why would anybody go back to Tatooine? And secondly, you've already got Jakku as like the dusty desert planet in this. To have Tatooine in this trilogy as well, it seems confusing to me. I don't know, James. How do you feel about this? Does this sound like nonsense to you?
It's not that it sounds like nonsense. Immediately, I went to like, well, what are they trying to connect? And like, Corey said, well, what happened to the holocron? So I thought maybe they've left unfinished business that they've just they've hinted at, and so there'll be like a plot-specific reason they have to go back.
Corey, do you have anything to add? I mean,
yeah, definitely.
All right, go ahead.
The writer of the article had stated, crime had dropped dramatically on Tatooine once Jabba was taken out of power. So like, it's kind of become like a peaceful place. It's Luke's home, and I've always said this too, that it seems like Tatooine's kind of like a hotbed or like a hub for the Force. So who knows? Maybe there are some kind of like Jedi temples already there that Luke chose to establish his order.
I guess maybe. I mean, obviously, I can't categorically deny that Tatooine's going to be in this, but don't you think it's a bit much to have Jakku and Tatooine both in the same trilogy? Doesn't it seem a bit visually confusing anyway?
Not really. I mean, people who are fans of Star Wars, like, I want to go back to Tatooine. Like, we have roots there, like, I don't want to, like, I agreed I want to grow away from this kind of thing too, but I think this planet's always had some kind of significance within this saga, so I think it feels right to go back there for, I'm not 100% sure what the reason's going to be, but however they write it should have some kind of significance, I would think.
Well, I would hope so. I hope if they put it in there that it's for a reason.
Well, and
a good reason.
Touching on temples, like that seems to be like the theme, right? Like temple planets and old Jedi temples and getting back to the root of things. So I think that's a good guess. I think that could be a reason to go back if they do.
Maybe read something in Ben's diary about how amazing it was to like meditate there for all those years and how much he grew stronger in the Force by doing so. You could see it can be quite a beautiful and serene planet at times, even though it's a desert, you know. You just got to pop on some John Williams and.
It seems to me that I don't know why, if you're trying to set up a Jedi Academy, you choose a place where it's a struggle just to live. And I know that the Jedi are supposed to live minimally and they don't need to live in these posh quarters. But Tatooine, where water is scarce?
I think it's the desolation part, the ability to just be alone and truly focus.
Well, you could do that on Dagobah and not worry about drinking water.
Yeah, or some kind of like 30-foot slug.
Like, if you swapped Tatooine for Dagobah on this, I would be more in agreement. It makes more sense to me to return to Dagobah, where Luke was taught about the Force, where massive life forms readings here, there's something alive here. Like, the planet itself seems to be strong in the Force. Tatooine just seems like a nothing planet. And if they add more to it, there's a hidden temple that was there the whole time. That, I don't know how, I'm sure I'd go along with it. But to do that now, after, episodes 1 through 6 didn't touch on it at all, to learn that in episode 8, it seemed like a unnecessary shoehorn to me.
Yeah, and a silly planet to hide Luke on, too, if there's a temple there.
We could touch on this a bit later, but, okay, 2 things. Chosen One was born there, and Luke's gonna get his whole hands on Obi-Wan's diary, right? Or his journal,
he already has. He got his hands on Ben Kenobi's journal in the comics.
So there you go. He's probably, maybe there's some kind of stuff in there that Luke's discovering.
Like, is there a difference to you, James? I'll throw this at you. Is there a difference to you whether they visit Tatooine in a Force back or like in, I guess, inline scene?
Yeah, there's a difference. I mean, it's way easier to do some sort of, flashback or. Yeah, I think there's a difference there.
I would more easily swallow a Force back on Tatooine than an entire sequence there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, that falls in line with what the author of this article is kind of saying as well.
Yeah, and I mean, the report is sort of an intermixing of what he was told, and then he editorializes a little bit and puts in his own opinion. So, we've got to be careful just not to. I just want to talk about what he was told versus what he thinks. I mean, we can talk about what he thinks, but we just need to be clear about what we're saying he was told and what he's injecting, which is fine, because a lot of what he does inject rings true, at least to me. Okay, so Corey, you're a yes to Tatooine?
Yeah.
James, you're a?
Yeah, sure, I like Tatooine. Maybe, like you said, even if it's just a quick Force-back scene, it'd be cool to revisit.
And I'm a no to a scene there, but I'm okay with a Force-back. All right, moving on to Endor. The fuzzy little home of the home of the fuzzy little Ewoks. So in this, the idea is that Kylo Ren would be back there, sort of maybe scavenging either wreckage from the Empire, or more specifically, this is where his grandfather who he's obsessed with, was cremated. So maybe there's some more artifacts left over at the funeral pyre, which I find unlikely, but something's going on there. So, Corey, I'll start with you this time. What about Endor? Do we need to go back there?
See, that's the stretch for me on this one. I'm not that comfortable with this one. This could be something left for novels, comics, or even somewhat explained verbally in the movie, but we don't need to go back there. Like, I'm curious as to how Kylo got Vader's burnt mask, but we're kind of understanding now that stuff like that's in the black market in Star Wars. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see any reason for us to go back there other than just maybe to touch base with his grandfather in a sense that, okay, like this is where he passed on, this is where his legacy died kind of deal, to touch that kind of spiritual level or whatever. But to look for relics and stuff at that point, I think it's kind of pointless and doesn't really need to be seen on film.
James, what do you have to add to that?
I think I could envision like a cool scene of him, of Kylo Ren meditating like in the spot where Vader was like cremated, in the spot where he thinks the pyre was. Like I can see some sort of possibly cool scene there, but I don't need to see a lot more than that. Although I will say that Endor is like tied to one of my answers for Ad's question later.
Interesting. I'm kind of on the same vein with Endor as I was with Tatooine. I don't see any reason for them to go back. I think it's been touched on in the novels, as was mentioned in this piece on Star Wars Newsnet, that in the Aftermath series and in Bloodline, Vader's funeral pyre has kind of been picked clean for all we know, at least from what it sounds like. And all that stuff is gone. So unless it's just sort of for Kylo Ren, like I think Corey, you said, like, or James, visiting the place where Vader was cremated. Like it's sort of visiting your grandparents' grave, Unless it's that, I see no reason to go back. None. It just seems rather unnecessary to me because we're getting, from what we know, and this is just off the top of my head, the planet from the Bolivian salt flats, which they believe is the First Order's hideout. We're getting the planet that where Dubrovnik stood in. What else are we getting? Obviously, we're going to get tons of stuff from like the inside of a Star Destroyer. Much of the planet, the time will be spent on Act 2. So how many environments can you shoehorn into a movie? And Revenge of the Sith maybe answered that question because it jumped around an awful lot. So it can be done, but it makes for you got to keep your head on a swivel in this movie, if that's the case. But anyway, as far as I guess I'm a little bit more okay with Endor over Tatooine, but just slightly.
Wow.
Just slightly. I don't think we need to go back. And then there's Mustafar. Now this is where it gets interesting.
Seems like we have to go there.
Right. So, cutting to the chase, this is Darth Vader's castle, as introduced in Rogue One. Let's just get right to it. This has got to be a place that Kylo Ren hangs out at, just because he's that sick and twisted, right?
Yeah, this would be awesome. Like, I got a fever, and the only remedy is more Mustafar, man. Give me more Mustafar all day. I want to see this again. Like, I want explanations. I want what we had talked about maybe a few months ago, where the writers came up with all this background stuff that is not necessarily canon or true, but just so that they can develop it properly. Like, let's get into that. Let's see what's left of this place, what it really is. Like,
hey, they gave Kylo Ren an injury, right? You think the first shot we see of him is him like recharging in Vader's bacta tank?
Oh God, how gross would that be? Cool, cool, but gross. Oh.
Why gross? Is sharing bacta tanks not kosher?
I hope they change the back to water.
Yeah, maybe they have to recycle the water, but ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh. Anyway, this for me, and I think we're all going to agree with this. This makes the most sense. Otherwise, why would they have shoehorned this Mustafar Vader's castle into Rogue One? Again, that as cool as that scene is, seeing Vader in that bacta tank and him force choking Krennic, it's ultimately a useless scene. You didn't need to have that scene take place there. As cool as it is, and as happy as we all are to have seen it, it's needless in my opinion. So, but
it's
now
either
that we have
fan service or there's more to it.
I don't know if it's fan service, but I think this, by doing it in Rogue One, you get that like clumsy intro out of the way. So now you can just get right down to the meat and potatoes in The Last Jedi if they go back.
Yeah, I totally agree. I want to see more of this place. like big time. I want to know more of how it functions and what it did.
Well, it's built. Wasn't it built on a Sith temple?
Yeah. From what little we know, like there was like layers and the prongs to it were like kind of like receptors in a way.
Well, yeah, they were built as, I don't know if they actually do anything, but the inspiration for the design was they were like tuning forks. And I think the Jedi Temple on Jeddah had the same idea. So I don't know if the design has anything really to do with the Force, but hell, it's cool. And we all, I think I speak for just about every Star Wars fan, that we definitely want to go back there. But that makes the most sense to me, that we'll go there. And even if it's just to see Kylo Ren chilling out, getting his evil on, that's how, I don't think there's going to be any, like, set action piece there. But I guess I could be wrong. It may not even be in The Last Jedi. That could be something saved for Episode 9. Is there anything else on this?
I think it's good that we keep in touch with like core planets from our knowledge within the saga, and like I want to outreach a lot as well too. Like I don't want to flood our minds with that either. Like you said, Kyle, you don't want to planet jump too much in a movie. Like you don't want to get too confused. But definitely familiar planets of significance. Like I'd like to see them written into the saga with some kind of importance that we didn't necessarily see before.
Well, this is exactly where I wanted to go with this. So we know that they're kind of these creators now, especially with this relatively new era of Star Wars. They have to walk a fine line of old versus new, and they came out under a lot of fire in The Force Awakens for quote unquote rehashing A New Hope. And whatever, it's a valid criticism. But, like, how long do we need to stick with that? How long do we need to stick with making sure that, everything still feels familiar and we visit these old places and deal with these old characters, familiar faces? When does this stop, or does it stop? Who wants to tackle that one?
Well, of course there's going to be a fine line, but I think they're always going to err on the side of, like, cautious and safe, which is more familiar. Like, the more familiar they put in, the more they can count on not offending the big fan base. Like, no one's going to be mad to see old planets. Whereas some people could be turned off by, like, if every place in a Star Wars movie was new and they got nothing familiar. So I'm not surprised that this is the way they'd be going. And frankly, I think this will always be the formula. It's not that they won't expand the universe, but like, the planets that they're showing us in, and the places that they're showing us in Rebels will be part of the big scope and our familiar warm fuzzy places in a few years. So, those will be in the movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think. Well, go ahead, Corey.
It's huge. Like the galaxy's a massive place. Like, granted, I want to see again, like the planets can put us in that comfort zone, kind of. It's our like a blanket in a way. Like just it secures us and it keeps us grounded, lets us know where we are in the saga, I guess. But like, think of Rogue One. Like I don't really. Yavin 4 is really our only planet that we knew prior, I would think, that we landed on, right? And we planet jumped a lot. Mustafar, that's true, we had been there.
And besides that, there was the Ring of Kafrene. There was Wobani, Jeddah.
Had we been on? Well,
Scarif?
we hadn't been on those. We hadn't been on those planets before. That's what I'm saying. They're expanding the universe, like, or the galaxy, like. Same thing in Clone Wars. Like they kept true to, like, staying on Coruscant, planets like that. Like, I think the planets at the center of the galaxy are always going to have some kind of more importance than the outer rim planets. Like, we'll always have one planet to kind of play off, I would think.
Well, it doesn't get more outer rim than Tatooine?
Ask the Lasats.
Well, I would if I could. Do you think I think there's maybe a weaning process going on. where you keep people familiar a little bit now, and then step by step you kind of, I don't want to say phase out, but keep integrating more new rather than leaning on the old. I read an interview with Gary Whitta, and was it with comingsoon.net or comicbook.com? I can't remember. But he said, 10, 20 years from now, Star Wars is not going to look, and this is not a quote, but Star Wars is not going to look what it is now. Like, they're not going to be dealing with the same old names and faces and places that we're used to. Which I think makes sense. Star Wars has to branch out and do new. It can't always, like you said, Corey, it's a big galaxy. For as small and intimate as it feels, they can't keep going to the same places all the time.
Not for the main storyline, but you can head there for a bit. But again, like you said it, there's so many planets out there that, for sure, they have just carte blanche almost.
Yes, to circle back with this report, well, we'll do a power ranking in a second here. But I guess personally, I think I had my nostalgia bone tickled enough with The Force Awakens. It felt super familiar yet fresh to me. I think for me, I've got that out of the way. I'd like to see more new. If I had this pie chart, I would want 75, 80% new and 20% old. And as gradually that would go to 85, 90% new, 10% old, and so on. And with maybe, every 20 years or so, you do a snapback and really hit us with a dose of nostalgia. But, for the most part, the more we go along, the more I'd like to forge ahead with the new. I don't know where you guys sit on that one.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I
mostly agree.
There's so many stories out there, so much to do in so little time that, let's get creative. Let's see some new stuff. Like they said, they have the next 15 years planned. So,
or at least talking about it. So yeah. Okay, so let's quickly power rank this. I'll go quickly here. I'm gonna go from most likely to least likely. Or no, so should we do it? You want to do most likely to least likely, or what you want? Now let's do what we want. So I'm gonna go with Mustafar, Endor, Tatooine. Corey, what's your power ranking?
Mustafar, Tatooine, Endor.
James O.
Endor, Mustafar, Tatooine.
Nice, guys. High fives all around for having different power rankings. Beautiful.
I think James just tried for that.
No, I think that makes sense with what he said. Now, James, if we go to Endor, do you want to see Ewoks?
No comment.
You know what became of Ewoks, right? In the Star Wars galaxy?
Do I want to know?
I don't know. You might find it really cute and cool and appropriate, or you might be like, what the hell, that's the tackiest thing I've ever heard.
Okay, go ahead.
And Corey, this will be a bit of a spoiler for you and anybody else who's not yet read the Aftermath books. But what not became of all Ewoks, I don't think, but some of them, they became more or less like therapy dogs. You know, when you bring an animal to a hospital to cheer up the wounded and the sick.
That's awesome.
I told Candace that.
I don't know if it's awesome. They were warriors.
I'm gonna die here, but yeah, no, I told my wife that, and she was like, "No way, you're lying. You're clearly lying about that." And I pulled up a quick little news story saying what had become of Ewoks. She's like, "Oh my god, they made them little therapy dogs, and that's what they do."
That's pretty cute.
I'll have to digest that.
Not down with that, James?
I'm not sure. Maybe I am.
And I don't know how to take that. I never, you could easily tweet Chuck Wendig and ask him, like, was that like an homage to the Ewoks? Are you doing them respect here? Or is that a joke because you hate them and you're trying to, like, crap on them a little more? I don't know how that's interpreted. Anyway, All right, so sticking with this piece from Star Wars Newsnet, there was a second undercurrent here about Luke and what he's been doing and what happened to him. And what it boils down to is Luke and the flawed Jedi that we grew up with. And we've spoken about this, so we'll try not to repeat ourselves, but I guess there's a bit of new info here. And the story kind of it's not a confirmation yet, but it leans on what we've said in the past, that Luke has come to the understanding, whether through his own research or Force Ghost chats with Dad, or with Obi-Wan, or with Yoda, that the Jedi of old, or that we knew, were flawed, fatally flawed, and what they were teaching was just not the way to go. So Luke has gone to Act 2 and done all this questing to really get to the bottom of what it means to be a Jedi. And listeners to this show have heard us beat this drum. So, does this bit, Corey, does it help you along in informing your opinion anymore, or?
I thought it was very reassuring to hear something like this being written on paper, because I've been saying this for a long time. Like, the first question that comes to mind is, why is Luke on Act 2? It's the planet where the first Jedi Order was formed. So there's so many questions that can be asked just by knowing that. And one of them, like I've said this for a long time, is that Luke, over the years, he's kind of discovered that, yeah, like, something's wrong. Like, it didn't work the first time, and maybe there's something wrong with the way that they were perceiving things, and that there could possibly be another way.
Yeah. And James, this has sort of been your nervous area. Does that still apply, or did this story give any extra context for you?
Well, here's the thing. If they got it so wrong, then how did they get the prophecy right? Like, if Lucas says, the prophecy was fulfilled and Vader then the Jedi were right. And so, like, how many miles off the mark could they have been?
I don't think anyone still to this day, like, in their terms, knew exactly what the Jedi, what the prophecy was exactly. Like, it's such a confusing topic, really.
No, you make it very confusing.
Well, how's this? I've been hearing this lately too. Like, the Sith, the prophecy is not only a Jedi prophecy; it's a Sith prophecy too.
It's just it's a neutral prophecy.
Well,
anyway,
it's not. Yeah. At any rate, I don't know. I don't like it. The idea that the Jedi we grew up with had it all wrong. I don't like the idea that wise old Obi-Wan is like flawed old Obi-Wan. I don't like it at all. I don't like it.
Well, that's the thing. The Obi-Wan that we know from A New Hope when we were kids, I would imagine that Obi-Wan is sort of a reformed Obi-Wan. It's the one from the prequels that was, very dogmatic about things. That's the one, along with all the others, that were flawed. By the time we got to know them in the originals, by then they would have been like, damn it. No wonder we fell apart. Those guys have figured it out, but it's too late, obviously. The guys who've seen the prequels are the ones that have screwed the pooch.
Yeah, I've said that here not too long ago, like how you would feel about that, James, in the sense that Obi-Wan and Yoda being secluded for this long and kind of being able to look at things, by the time we meet them in A New Hope for the first time and Empire respectively, that they're different Jedi than what they were in the prequels. So the definition of what you know and love as a Jedi is really the approach that they were kind of trying to push Luke in.
Yeah, I think the simpler way of putting it is the guys we grew up with are the guys that should have been all along. The more I think about it, and I think one of the jarring things about the prequels is that the representation of the Jedi there was not what we'd expected, right? We didn't expect them to be these flashy warriors. Like we thought maybe they'd be a little more grounded spiritually. But instead they were generals, which they never should have been, and by the end Yoda had admitted to that. that's kind of the way I'm seeing it now. And I don't know if it's a deepening retcon, but I think that really the guys that we grew up with were closer to the truth of what it is to be a Jedi rather than the complacent clan that we saw living in that gigantic temple on Coruscant. So I'm okay with this direction. I mean, they could lose me along the way, I suppose. But I think it makes sense. And I like the fact that it seems like the direction, of course, not to beat a dead horse, but we've been talking about it saying, I hope Luke is going to go back, reach into those old Jedi ideals, and pull it back into the present time, and lay that groundwork for not just for his universe, but for us too, so that we can finally see the embodiment of a proper Jedi Order on screen. I hope that's where this is going. And it sounds like, what they said here in the report, that Luke Skywalker is no quitter. So it doesn't sound like I've always thought that, Luke's not going to try and start another Jedi Order. He had one taken away. He's no spring chicken. He can't do this again. But it seems like he's going to do it again, and he's going to do it right.
That seems like the natural, a natural continuity for the story too. And again, I love the ancient lore aspect, so.
Well, what it does is it's good for business because the Jedi are going to continue both in practice and in name, which James, that should be music to your ears. The Jedi will continue to be, if this report pans out.
I know. Which makes me wonder if Luke dies in 8, and then there's only one Jedi left, the one he just trained. Because I'm trying to make sense of that title. If the names, if they're going to go on in name. So that means, at some point, the title The Last Jedi has to,
Yeah, that title's got to kick in somewhere.
Although apparently it's plural, too, though, right? So, who knows?
Yeah. Anyway. Interesting stuff. I'm hopeful. I'm a little bit leery. It's nerve-wracking, and I guess it's supposed to be. This should be a little bit like Christmas, or like a first date, where you're not quite sure how this is going to go, but you're excited to find out. I don't know. Today I'm gonna choose to be optimistic about it, and I think that's because this past week I've put a focus on extra sleep. So I think my mood is a little bit better this week. I'm in a better spot. I decided every night this week I'm going to get a decent night's sleep, and it worked. I'm not dragging yet. As it's getting a little bit later here at night, but and usually I'm flagging, but I'm holding up here. We'll move ahead. We're going to pound along here. This was a surprise. This came along late Friday, that Hayden Christensen, the chosen one himself, is going to be at Star Wars Celebration in Orlando, and fans went crazy. I think he's sort of been. He hasn't participated much in fandom. And I think the reasons for that are understandable. He's taken a lot of flack. And as a result, he's taken shelter from fandom. But he's coming out at Celebration, which I think is awesome news. And apparently it's being well received because he's charging $130 or $140 for an autograph. And it sold out just like that. Like the fastest selling autograph ever at any celebration, which is cool to me.
Yeah, that says a lot.
Either fans miss him, or they figure, I better get his autograph now before he goes back into hiding. Or maybe it's a bit of both.
No, I think all I've seen on Twitter this week is just positive feedback in regards to that. And I'm so stoked for him too, man. I'm glad that, I think this is gonna, how good is it? Imagine that, if you got dumped on something, for doing something for so long.
And it wasn't even his fault, right? If anything, you gotta look at George Lucas and say you gave him some pretty lousy material to work with.
Yeah, I agree. But just that feeling he's gonna have walking out on that stage, and however they do it too, man, it's gonna be glorious for him. And for everybody. It should be a really good moment.
No, I think people are gonna go crazy. I mean, I fully expect George Lucas to be there at the 40th anniversary panel. But I think besides Lucas, I think Hayden Christensen might get the biggest ovation of anybody at Celebration at all. And I'm including Mark Hamill in that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's saying a lot. And like you said, that's probably partly because of the fact that he hasn't done much of this kind of thing. But I think it's also going to be just like fandom showing their support and showing their love for him and just wanting him to realize how much he means to certain people.
Absolutely. And I feel like there's been a bit of a prequel loving, a renaissance, if you will, over the last, really, I mean, since I really got heavily involved with fandom, on Twitter specifically. It feels like the prequels as films and what they contribute to the saga has kind of had a big uptick in popularity. And I don't know if it's because the movies are aging, maybe they're aging well, or maybe their contributions are being more recognized. But I also think it's because the kids that grew up with these movies are now getting online and getting more active and more vocal. And they see all this prequel hate and they're not having any of it. And so I think maybe they're tipping the scales a little bit too. But I think, when it comes to the prequels, there's still all the bitter old curmudgeons. George Lucas ruined my childhood, which is a ridiculous thing to say. But yeah, I don't know. Have you guys noticed that at all?
Big time. There's still some hate out there, and there's still a lot of harsh criticisms, which again at times is very granted and well deserved.
Look, the prequels aren't perfect, but and by no means. But
I think you notice what you're talking about for sure. But I'll say this too: it's like nowadays, it's not okay to criticize Star Wars at all. Like it's just not okay. You have to like it all.
There are those people
by fandom,
and I see them all the time. Like you can't say a critical word about Star Wars, or there's something defective about you, which I think is all equally absurd. You don't have to like everything with a Star Wars logo on it. You can criticize. That is perfectly fine.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I definitely have seen more love for the prequels of late, like even in the last year in doing this podcast.
And if you think about it too, like think about, Kyle had mentioned it too. I think this is one of the big things too. People who are 20, 21 years old now, like young adults that are like, really living in the kind of the prime of their lives. They were what, like 5, 6 when the movie came out?
Sure, yeah.
So that's it. Like these, and these are people now that you can actually have a legit conversation. You're not talking to kids anymore. Well, what I mean?
This is Ben and Ash at Skyhoppers.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you're going to tell them that the prequels stink? No. They're not going to have that. Anyway, so I ran this little poll. Oh, actually, before we get there. So with Hayden coming back, I jumped to a theory right away, which is not a unique one. A lot of people went with it, as did Mark at TSW. Do you think this is a precursor to a surprise casting announcement for The Last Jedi? Do you expect him, or do you expect there to be an announcement that, oh, by the way, Hayden's in The Last Jedi? Corey, what do you think?
Well, I think I discussed with you guys last week after we had stopped recording. I asked you guys, how come it's just so ironic like that, or coincidental, whatever. But we'd stop recording and I'm talking to you guys, and I said, hey, like, how come we don't ever talk about like Vader? We talk about Yoda communing with Luke. We talk about Obi-Wan communing with Luke, and all these but I never really remembered us talking about Anakin communing with Luke, and we kind of discussed that off air. And yeah, here we are a week later, and it's like, yeah, I want that. I want to see it.
So here's the thing. James, do you have anything to add to that?
No, not really. I remember Corey bringing that up, and I wouldn't be surprised at all. I mean, it makes total sense that, they are marketing. That's what they do, is they market the hell out of everything. So the fact that they've announced this and brought him to Celebration would be, I'd say, more than a 50% chance that we'll hear he's going to be in the movie.
Or either that, maybe even they're just, maybe they could, in the least, priming him for Episode 9, but I would hope it's an Episode 8 announcement.
So with that in mind, I ran a poll, and it was more of an experiment, my own selfish experiment, rather than really finding out the true opinion. So I have a theory that the new thing will always win the vote. It's the honeymoon period. It's the ball of yarn in front of the little kitten. So right after this news broke, I posted a poll, and I said, you get the choice of one Force ghost to appear in The Last Jedi and Episode 9. Who do you want it to be? So I gave the choices of Yoda, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and other. And my theory, my contention was Anakin was going to win this walking away. Well, Anakin did win it, although it was a fairly split vote. But he did win it, which I'll give you my thoughts on that in a second. So he took 37%, Obi-Wan took 32%, and Yoda took 27%, with a paltry 4% for other. What's interesting about this is that we already have a very, very strong feeling that Yoda will be part of this, and it will presumably be as a Force ghost. We've already heard Obi-Wan's voice in The Force Awakens, so if there's going to be a ghost, Obi-Wan also stands a strong chance. Now, Anakin, there's no reason to believe, really, based on what we've seen, that Anakin's going to be in this. Yet, here we are, 37% want this. So this little poll reaffirms my theory at least a little bit. And it had 294 votes, so it's a decent sample size. But do you guys agree with this? Among all the Force Ghost possibilities, James, is Anakin at the top of your list?
No. Pretty easy. He's probably third. I think it'd be cool. But I'm really happy that we're probably going to see Yoda. That would be my first choice.
And you're a big Yoda guy, which makes sense.
Yeah, he's really, when it comes down to picking, like if you had to do a top 5, for instance, he'd be right up there for me.
And based on all evidence, Yoda is the lock. Corey, where would you fall in this poll?
I voted it, and me too, I went with Yoda, but having some time to think about it after the fact, I think what I'd most like to see is Luke talking to his father. Like, I get that. I want to see all three of them, and I know I tried to loophole the poll with Dave Donovan, and that didn't go over too well. But I think there's a possibility that all three of these characters can still be in this movie in a way. I really would love to see Anakin and Luke talk a bit. That would be really, really poetic and nice. And who knows? Anakin can maybe teach him a thing or two about the gray, seeing as how he's been to the dark and back, And Yoda, again, I really want to see, and Obi-Wan's like a second father to him, so
yeah, I mean,
all three make sense.
Yeah, I mean, my whole point was I wanted to make people make a tough choice. I totally agree that you could get 1, 2, or all three of these choices, but I wanted people to pick one just to see how this plays out, and it played out exactly how I thought it would. Based on the results, 27, 32, 37%, it's a pretty fair distribution. I'd love to see Anakin and Luke talk once again. That would be amazing to see. But it would also be fantastic to see Yoda on screen again. As would it be great to see Obi-Wan. Although, do you want to see Ewan McGregor dolled up as old Obi-Wan? Like, shouldn't it still be Alec Guinness?
Yeah, they proved they could do that now. And the thing is, too, with Anakin, I don't want to see young Anakin talking to old Luke.
Right, weird. That's awkward, right? That's another, another spoke in the wheel of that. That's the thing. It wouldn't feel like, even though I get that, like, he's still got the wisdom and he's the chosen one and all that. Just, I don't know. It'd just be weird. Yeah, it's visually weird to have the youngin' giving it to the old guy. Unless it's just a voice, right? Maybe you don't see him. Maybe you just hear his voice. I was thinking about that too. I don't think they'd age him anyhow, but I can still get it. It all depends how it's acted and or directed, right? I could see the wisdom being imparted still. Well, I will say this: at some point, whether it's in one of these two movies or in some other media, Anakin and Luke will talk to each other. I think that's a virtual guarantee at some point. I had somebody tell me that Qui-Gon should be here too. No, he shouldn't. He has no relationship to Luke. We love Qui-Gon. He doesn't belong here.
I got a quick question for you. Just thinking about this now, what do you think by the end of this trilogy or this saga, Luke and Leia being the Force ghosts at the end, waving goodbye, kind of, as Kylo and Rey look on?
Well, apparently Force ghosting takes some practice. And I know that Anakin really didn't practice anything, but maybe he gets an exemption for being the Chosen One. Now, does being the Chosen One's kid get you also through the gates? Like, I can imagine Luke learning the trick, but Leia? Did Luke teach her?
Well, she'll have had time at this point, no? By this point?
Well, I mean, it's
not necessarily. We don't know what's
not
happening.
Really. It's pretty clear. It's very clear that she's not really studied anything Jedi related over the years.
Whatever. Her Force ghost buddies are gonna coax her along the way. She'll be fine.
I don't know. I don't know if I want to see Leia as a Force ghost. And my God, I'm sure somebody's going to want to jump on my neck for that. But I think the Force ghost thing should be reserved for actual Jedi.
I want to see it.
You want to see everything. Okay, moving on here. Making Star Wars had a little story here last week that Justin Theroux is in The Last Jedi, and my first thing was, who is this guy? Like, I see his name everywhere, mostly associated in tabloids with Jennifer Aniston. Otherwise, I have no idea who this guy is, other than somehow he's very popular. Does anybody here know this guy?
You guys are gonna.
How'd you say his name?
Justin Theroux? It's pronounced some other way?
You're pronouncing it wrong. Yes, it's Justin.
Justin. Justin?
No, I'm just
Justin Theroux? Is that it?
I have no idea who this guy was either. But we're out of touch. We're old and out of touch now.
No, you guys, this is going to be a blast from the past. It's going to hit you in the face right now. Do you guys remember the DJ from Zoolander? The evil DJ?
No.
Yeah, of course. With the dreads?
Yeah, that's him.
I don't think I'd recognize him, but I know who. I remember that scene very well. Relax.
Yeah. He's also
I
in...
do not.
You don't, Kyle? Oh, my God.
No. I saw Zoolander once, and that was it.
What?
Yeah, I mean, nothing
That's
against
not
Zoolander.
true.
It was really funny. I just never got around to seeing it a second time. Anyway, so at least the two of you have some familiarity with this guy. And I'm the only Luddite who has no clue other than his tabloid presences. So anyway, according to Making Star Wars, he's playing a slicer, which for the uninitiated in Star Wars parlance, that means he's a hacker. And he's part of it. He has a pivotal moment in the movie. And whether he's good or bad is yet to be determined. They don't know. But I thought we would just gloss over that quickly. I have nothing further to add to this piece. Do either of you?
Moving on.
Moving on. Oh, welcome to the family, Justin Theroux. Enjoy fandom. In about a week's time, we'll know everything about this guy.
Yahoo. Yeah, we will.
All right, back over to Star Wars Newsnet. They had another big long piece this week. Lots about Lucasfilm's creative process, which we won't talk about, but I would encourage you to just head over to Star Wars Newsnet and read that piece. It's it is an interesting piece. And I guess the long and short of it is that whatever comes out of their creative minds, none of it gets thrown out. Everything kind of goes into their vault for future use. But they did talk about some movies that are potentially in development. And they're claiming that this is very solid stuff. Things that have projects that have traction at Lucasfilm and I don't want to say that they've been greenlit and are going ahead, but things that are under very serious consideration. And there's 3 major film projects that are really making the rounds at Lucasfilm and that we can expect to see. So the first, surprise, surprise, is the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie. And I say movie, yeah. Well, not a surprise, right? Apparently, Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm, they completely, fully, absolutely intend to make an Obi-Wan movie set between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope with Ewan McGregor in tow. That's almost a quote. Makes total sense. Ewan McGregor had been doing this dance with the media saying, yes, yeah, well, blah, 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 and he's being coy. It almost sounded as much of a confirmation as Frank Oz was, when he was being evasive a few weeks ago. But he's backed away ever since. And I'm sure that, the powers that be at Lucasfilm said, let's sidestep the questions for the next little while. And they wanted at Star Wars News Net to emphasize movie, singular, not a trilogy. So does that bum you out that we may not get a trilogy of Obi-Wan?
Hell no.
Makes sense to you?
Makes 100% sense. I think I said it last week that we don't want to hobbitize things within the Star Wars universe. Like, this can be done in one movie.
It makes me really sad when you say that, Corey.
I know, but you're on the same page with me, right?
Because it's absolutely because it's accurate. Like, it's so sad that that's an accurate, like, the perfect term for that scenario.
Yeah,
to hobbitize.
You don't want to get greedy, right? You don't want to take something that is perfectly done in one movie and stretching it into 3 movies. You don't want to do that. That's the wrong way to approach things from. At least
think of it, man. 3 movies based on Tatooine. We've said it here before. If Luke's on that planet, I don't think he's going anywhere, right?
No, Obi-Wan does not leave Tatooine.
Yeah, so one movie can cover it. I think we're good to go.
And even if it's a 3-hour movie, like a Lawrence of Arabia type thing, that's fine. Make it a long, drawn-out, epic movie. But don't get greedy and don't stretch for material and shoehorn stuff in that doesn't need doing.
Did you choose Lawrence of Arabia because it's long or because it takes place in the desert?
Both.
Well, then good choice.
I just think it's awesome, though. This is really reassuring to me in the long run that I know fandom's kind of speculating and leaning in that direction. And, hopefully Disney obviously did have their ear to the ground because originally it wasn't supposed to be this coming up next. And I hope it is next. This is what fans want. This is what I think we all want. So to have this written in an article like that and to have almost, it seems just about confirmation. I think we'll have confirmation in about a week or 2, sorry. But, this seems like a confirmation to me because it's a very valid source as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, in my mind, Star Wars Newsnet is a very solid source of news. As unsurprising as an Obi-Wan movie is, I'm not going to knock them for throwing this out there. So they're saying that Rogue One's Gareth Edwards could be returning to direct this movie. And God love Gareth Edwards for what he's given us, but I do not like this call. I don't think I want Gareth Edwards doing this. I would say, Gareth Edwards does, like, big action, big monsters. I would want this to be a smaller, more intimate movie.
Character piece?
Sorry?
Like a character piece?
Yeah, really character driven. And, I mean, we got some cool characters in Rogue One, but I can't say that I particularly latched on to any of them and I'm just dying to learn more about them. I would rather this go to somebody who is a bit more adept at directing characters. No,
agreed. He's a Godzilla kind of like action guy. Like, again, Rogue One was great, but I like what you're saying there. I think this movie needs to be more character based. The subtle beauty of kind of something along the lines of what we saw in Twin Sons.
Yeah, the character and cinematography, I think, would have to carry this movie. I wouldn't look to this movie to be this high-flying action adventure.
But in the lore aspect, who knows what it got planned? It could open a whole can of worms. Maybe it's just going to tell his tale between here and there. But, maybe it also kind of like provides insight into something that's going to just blow our mind as well. Yeah, I mean, this is one movie that I can't get a handle on as for what it's going to be. Like, I can't imagine Obi-Wan
pulling out his lightsaber 20 times in this movie and chopping adversaries down. I think, when you think about Obi-Wan movie, cool, that's one of the images that comes to mind. I don't think you're going to get that. I mean, it can't be stormtroopers. It's not going to be battle droids. They're all gone.
Obi-Wan trying to settle the frontier against Tusken Raiders.
But then again, the stakes have to be high enough that it would merit some sort of action aspect to the movie. And I struggle to see what that could be on a backwater planet like Tatooine. That it has to be big enough to entertain, yet small enough not to draw any attention from the Empire.
What about Inquisitors?
Well, if they send an Inquisitor, then the Empire's onto him.
Not necessarily. They seem to operate individually. Like in the Twilight of the Apprentice, you saw that. Was it the eighth brother? They had no idea where he was until he called them, right?
Right, but he's dispatched by Vader.
No, he was waiting there on his own accord. I think he was just bounty hunting in a way, looking for the shadow.
Maybe it could be a lost Inquisitor.
Yeah, because even that episode, they were like Sarah Michelle Gellar's character, the Seventh Sister, was like job well done. Like, let's call Vader at this point, Like, I think it's kind of like the Sith way in a way, like it's their downfall. They wait, and then they kind of either ask for help when it's too late or.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. All right, so they're saying Star Wars Newsnet is holding out hope that an Obi-Wan movie might just be one of the big surprises at Celebration Orlando. And they've offered up. They say there's some evidence to support this. I don't know what they're really talking about. James, is this something you're hoping for from Celebration? An announcement that we're getting an Obi-Wan movie, or is this still something that we can wait on a bit longer?
To me, that would be like the best news at a Celebration, I think. I think that would be like my favorite announcement that we could hope for. More so than finding out Christensen's in Episode 8.
That would be huge news. I mean, we're always looking for the next thing, right? We know already what's been confirmed. We just want to know what's next. Give us what's next. And I think I haven't taken the temperature of fandom, but I think the Obi-Wan movie is probably the number one for most people. That's the one they want next.
Well, I think there's a reason. Yeah, if it's announced, and everything that I've seen being on Twitter the last year, there's nothing telling me otherwise that the next standalone shouldn't be Obi-Wan through fandom's eyes, anyhow.
Yeah, through fandom's eyes, I would agree with that.
I would think Disney's listening.
I'm sure they are.
Lucasfilm, sorry.
I'm sure they're all listening. So the second movie they're talking about, again, surprise, surprise, is Boba Fett and the Bounty Hunters. And so we've already heard that a Boba Fett movie was sort of in the works and it fell apart. But we're being told that this movie is not dead. And I say, no shit. This movie is definitely going to be told. And they're saying, Star Wars Newsnet is saying it's not going to be an origin story, which again, I say, no shit. We got Attack of the Clones and we got the Clone Wars. There's Boba Fett's origin. Where this one would be set, as far as the timeline goes, my guess would be along the same parallel as the Han Solo anthology movies. And like I've said in the past, I think one interesting angle to take is make those movies a trilogy without saying it. So Han Solo would be part 1, Boba Fett is part 2, and then you could do, maybe it stops there, or maybe they do like Han Solo part 2, which is part 3 of that whole trilogy. But any interest, guys, in seeing a Boba Fett and the Bounty Hunters movie?
I think
less.
Yeah, definitely less. 100% less. And from what I gather as well, this was supposed to be the first spin-off film, if I'm not mistaken, from Josh Trank or Frank.
Yeah, Josh
Frank
Trank.
the Tank. Josh Trank, eh? He did the Fantastic Four movie in yeah, there was a lot of butting heads there, and that movie tanked, so they were just like kind of hit the bricks.
Yeah, there was a lot of drama surrounding that.
But yeah, I'm glad that got pushed back, because that's definitely not what I wanted to see. The fact that they added the bounty hunters, now that's starting to spice things up for me a bit. Like, it's not solely possibly a Boba Fett film, but who knows? You know, we can get Bosk, Dengar, like the whole group of them, the whole lot. Maybe even Cad Bane can make an appearance again. Like that whole thing makes a lot of sense to me. That they have to. Well, it kind of almost seems Rogue One-ish now if you think about it. That they have to cooperate to pull off a mission, but who knows? There's a lot of possibilities they can have with this, and it could be pretty cool. I just hope they really do it justice and do it well.
Yeah, I mean, that goes without saying. Anything that they put on screen has to be done well. That's a non-negotiable.
I just want it to really. I don't see how it's fully going to appeal to like people like us. Like, I think it's going to be good movie and fun and all that, but I really want them to. They got to get gritty with this one, I would think.
Well, I mean, they showed they could do that, and I would agree. This shouldn't be a glossy, shiny, bright movie. This should be something that's kind of dank and depressing to a degree.
Star Wars meets Mad Max.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, I mean, like you guys, I have less interest in seeing this. I get the allure of Boba Fett, but the allure of Boba Fett is that he's so scarce. And to me, he's a little less interesting now that we've fleshed out his origin in Attack of the Clones and Clone Wars. He's a little demystified to me. He's a little less cool to me these days. Maybe a movie further uncools him or restores the cool to him. But
it could be like a Batman. His movie could be like a Batman versus Superman in the sense that we'll have already seen the Han Solo movie, and Han Solo can be in the Boba Fett movie.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing I'm going with when I say that, these movies sort of link up together, but aren't necessarily a trilogy. I guess it'd be cool to see that, because I do think you need other people surrounding Boba Fett. And Corey, you kind of stole the words out of my mouth. Cad Bane should be in this. And I would go as far as to say that if it's a group effort of bounty hunters, that Cad Bane should be their leader. And so here's another question. Do we need to see Boba with his helmet off, or does he just wear it the entire time? Because it should be, technically speaking, it should be a mix of Tamara Morrison and who else played him in the Clone Wars? I can't remember. Another New Zealand actor, I believe. His name escapes me, but it should definitely be Tamara Morrison's voice. Now, who would they put under if they make an actor out of it? I don't know. Do we need to see his face, or should he wear the helmet the whole time?
Yeah, I'm a mask unveil kind of guy. Everyone's got to take their mask off at one point, and it's got to be awesome.
James,
Let me look at you with my own eyes.
I stand next to the microphone as often as I can. On this question, it's tough for me because, I looked up who Cad Bane was specifically for this question. We talked about him a couple of weeks ago, and he looks awesome. But I mean, do I know enough about him to want him in a movie? Absolutely not. Looks cool, so I'd watch that movie. Yeah, I don't know.
Once we get some time, once I'm finished with it anyhow, I'm gonna lend you the Clone Wars. I think I'm gonna do, because this is a lot longer than Rebels, I'm gonna really go through it maybe with Kyle and maybe see what fandom says as well. Pinpoint some episodes, but definitely watch some episodes with him and you're gonna really have a wicked respect for this guy, man. Like, he could take down a Jedi pretty easily.
Easy now.
Well,
yeah,
how many Jedi does he take down?
A few. Ahsoka comes to the top of my head right. Well, she was a Padawan at the time.
I mean, like take down as in kill, or take down as in I roped you?
I roped you in, like, I trapped you, like, I tricked you, I bounty hunted you.
All right. Anyway, he's a cool character. I don't know anybody who doesn't think Cad Bane is cool. And I'd like to see him on the big screen. That would work for me. All right, and the third project is one that, to me, sounds so vague that I don't know what to make of it. It sounds like any old saga Star Wars movie. And it's a Star Wars project to target the young adult audience and have a slight romantic theme to it. Doesn't that sound like every Star Wars movie not called Rogue One?
Yes.
Yeah.
It does, but it scares me at the same time. Like, the writer kind of shared that skepticism, the same skepticism in the sense that I don't want a saga, I don't want a Twilight to come out of this. Like, I don't want... Like, I get it. There is sappy love stories within the saga stuff, but I really don't think I'm going to be that interested in a love-based Star Wars story.
Well, I don't think it said it's going to be a love-based. So it said the story is a tragedy, and the angle has more in common with Han and Leia's romance in The Empire Strikes Back than anything else. And it is sort of one of the...
I'm getting a Romeo and Juliet feel here.
I think it's too early to even say what this is going to be. I mean, it does say, I mean, the author does inject his own opinion and say 40-year-old men may not be the target demographic for this one. Whatever. 40-year-old men were not the target demographic for The Phantom Menace or any of the Star Wars movies either. And yet here we are. So... I mean, again, this is just the ingredient of love story. Just that's essential Star Wars. I'm not scared by that yet. I mean, if it turns out to be, it's like two 15-year-olds, and it's
but there's no love story in Star Wars that was really the central aspect of the story. There were so many other things going on. They were just subplots, kind of. Like, for the love story to be the main plot of a Star Wars film, like, I don't know, we'll see how it goes again. We don't know enough to really speculate on it that much, but...
Yeah, I didn't get the impression from this that it's a actual love story with other stuff going on. I get the sense that there's other stuff going on, and there's a love story embedded in it. That's the feeling I get.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and I think that's almost one thing that Rogue One was lacking, even though that Jyn and Cassian did seem to have some kind of thing, but they never really played into it at all, which I really appreciated.
Yep. And they also make a note here that Kathleen Kennedy has said that they're looking for opportunities to get women into the directorial chair, and this might be the opportunity to do that. And again, I say, what? Like, why are you automatically linking a woman to the romantic one? Like, that to me, that seems very lazy, for lack of a better term. Like, you could attach a woman to the Obi-Wan movie very, very easily. Like,
so true.
It's just so cliched to say, well, the first woman director in Star Wars is going to do the romantic movie. Get out of here. That has no bearing on any of this. In my opinion, a capable female director can direct any type of story, period. There doesn't have to be the romantic one.
That kind of, just on a quick side tangent, I don't know if you guys heard, this kind of irked me a bit. Like, I get it, but they're making a Batgirl film, right?
Yes. And thank God it's about time.
And Joss Whedon is going to be the director/writer. I would think that that's amazing news for any fan of that series. Like, I love the whole Bat family. Granted, I've never really read that line of comics, but Joss Whedon is like, he's perfect to do this. Like, and I just heard all this backlash this week about how it should be a female director, and it is what it is. Like, Joss Whedon, he did Buffy for what, 8 years? Like, come on. Like, whoever Anyway,
I see both sides on this one, because you're right. Like, the Buffy tone might be exactly what they want from Batgirl. At the same time, if there's a character tailor-made and an age tailor-made to put attach a female director to a high-name project like this, you could have done this here.
I don't know. I just feel like you said it well. Like, a female can direct the Obi-Wan movie. Like, whatever it is, like, there shouldn't even be that distinction, really.
Well, I mean, this is our day and age, right? Where it's white male-dominated Hollywood, and that those walls are slowly, painfully crumbling. But I think it would have been a really good opportunity to give a female director the reins to the Batgirl movie. I don't have a problem. Like, I'm sure Joss Whedon will do a great job. But I think that it was a missed opportunity, in my mind. Anyway, you said quick side tangent. Let's keep it a quick side tangent. Yeah. Okay, so the last thing is from the Star Wars Newsnet piece is that they do plan a hiatus for Star Wars movies that will come a few years after the end of Episode 9. Whatever they mean by a few years is anyone's guess. But they give a couple of reasons for doing that. And one is that Star Wars is going to take a big focus on TV, which, as they highlight here, Dave Filoni got a big promotion to oversee all kinds of television programming. So, does that mean there's a lot of stuff coming? It would sound like it, I guess. And we've talked about it. We've said that, Star Wars should take a break from the big screen, and you can do other stuff. You could do TV in the meantime. So now that this seems to be a little more realistic of a possibility, James, is it something you're still okay with? Or is now the thought crystallizing a little more going, and you're thinking, oh God, no Star Wars for a few years? What? Woo, I'm not sure.
No, come on. I'm 41. I'm really good at doing not Star Wars for a bunch of years. we're seasoned at it. But I've always harped on that, banged on that drum that I thought they should take a break. I don't know, exactly what they mean when they say break. Do they mean break from the saga, break from the big screen in general? Who knows? But no, I'd be fine with it if they mean break for 5 years, 8 years. I'm all good.
Corey?
Totally good. James said it well. I think we're seasoned at this point. We've been through the major gaps. I think it makes sense, and I don't think they'll do anything more than, I think 8-10 years is a stretch. I think 5 years is really where they're gonna settle it off at, and I'm down with that. At least the saga stuff, anyhow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you guys in that there will be a break, and there should be a break, and Lucasfilm seems to agree. They want to starve the market and build up that interest again, and they want to make sure that fans don't get fed up. And of course, there's, the trilogies being a generational thing, they're going to wait before they start up episodes 10, 11, 12, which it would be announced, years down the road. So I made a quick little roadmap. This is probably complete BS, but the way I quickly see things playing out is that in 2017 we get The Last Jedi, 2018 we get Han Solo, and 2019 we get Episode 9 with Star Wars Celebration returning. This part is all booked. 2020, I'm going to say we get no movie and no celebration. We get a break there. And in 2021, starting in 2021, we get 3 years with 3 consecutive standalones. So the Bounty Hunter movie, Obi-Wan, and Corey, your love interest movie. And then from 2024, 25, 26, nothing. There's the window for really TV to take the I guess lead. But then in 2027 is when we get the return to the big screen, starting with the episode 10 maybe. And the only reason why I'll eat my shirt if there's no Star Wars movie in 2027 is that's the 50th anniversary of A New Hope. I guarantee there's a movie that year. Anybody want to take that bet?
What if they what if they put re-release A New Hope? What if that's the year for that?
That's a year they could do too. They could re-release A New Hope if things work out with Fox and Lucasfilm. They could re-release A New Hope, maybe revamped again, and then later that year, in their traditional December time slot, if they stick with that, release episode 10. But I would bet my last dollar that in 2027 there will be a new Star Wars movie, saga-based. So James isn't taking that bet. Corey, you want to take that bet?
No, I'm good. I think it makes sense. It'd be the perfect time to reboot a new saga. Even if it's not episode 10, maybe it's just going back in time, but still somehow continuing this saga.
Yeah, one way
maybe
or the other.
Episode 1 of Saga 2.
Well, okay,
Volume 3.
I wanted to, James, you brought it up, so I'm gonna go there. If you go back in time to the beginning of wherever they plan to go back to, what do you call that? You can't call it episode 1, that's done. So what is it?
No, it'll get renamed. It'll all get renamed. This will become known as the Skywalker Saga, and then whatever this, the Origin Saga or whatever this new thing is called, and then so you could just call it the episodes of that saga. That's my prediction.
You'd also have to give it the qualifier of it being part of that saga?
I don't think so. I don't know. I think you would. Yeah, you would always have to give it the qualifier, which saga it's from. But I think they would still use episodes 1, 2, and 3. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure if they would keep going 10, 11, 12, 13 if they're starting a new story.
No, you're right. I don't think they would. And I think we're seeing the start of Lucasfilm slowly, like debranding or rebranding. I don't know. Not mentioning episode numbers along with the titles anymore. They're just calling it Star Wars: The Force Awakens, Star Wars: The Last Jedi. They're not attaching it. They're not calling it Star Wars Episode 8: The Last Jedi. If you go to StarWars.com, you still see the episode numbers. But like in their press releases, official news things, I'm seeing less and less of the episode number being mentioned. So maybe that's the start of this here, where everything is just going to be called Star Wars titles, and that's what it's going to be. That's one way to get around this.
I can't see that when it comes to the saga, really. But the saga, I think this saga, as we know, it's going to end at one point. Let it be 9 or 12. And like James said, it could be Star Wars something episode 1. You could just start it out kind of all over again.
Yeah, that is a viable option to have the qualifier of this is episode 1 through 9 or 12 of the Skywalker saga. And then you can have 1 through whatever of the old-timey Jedi saga.
See, you're gonna get the double whammy here. You know how, like, we got slapped in the face with the prequels and how A New Hope was episode 4? What we're watching right now is actually volume 3. Episodes 1 through 9. So we still got volumes 1 and 2 to get to,
That's possible. which would be nuts. But anyway, there you go. There's an episode brought to you by Star Wars Newsnet. We're not done. We've still got to get to our favorite and first night of the Star Wars Commonwealth. We love ads here. We love this guy.
Do we ever?
Hey, ads!
Hey, ads.
And James, he wants your pick for the Masters.
I'm going to be really boring and say Dustin Johnson.
The big bomber?
Yeah, he's probably odds-on favorite to win it, world number 1.
Being someone who does not follow golf that closely and who does not play golf whatsoever, I'm going to do some home cooking. I'm going to go with Adam Hadwin.
Hey, that's a good pick. He's playing well of late.
Yeah, I mean, he won a tournament recently that got him into the Masters.
Yeah, he has no chance. But I like your hometown enthusiasm.
Yeah, I got to do some home cooking sometimes. I'm usually not that optimistic about underdogs. No. They have no chance. I'm more realistic, but I don't want to go with Mickelson again, or it's certainly not going to be Tiger. Is he even going to play?
No, he's going to be there and he's going to eat supper with the players, but he's decided he's not going to play.
30, 40 years from now, I think Tiger's fall from grace is still going to be one of the most fascinating stories in all of sports history.
It sure will.
I mean, it
sure was plummeting.
Like he was flying high, and then his ex-wife wrapped his golf club around his head after she caught him. And it was literally just a sheer fall off a cliff. Done. He was toast.
Correct.
And never, ever looked like he was going to be on his way back. Was there ever a moment you thought Tiger was back?
Yeah, he had a little comeback like a year and a half ago. He won 5 tournaments.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Well, was he ever really a threat at a major?
He hasn't been in a very long time, though.
I mean, this is going to, 2009 is when it all fell apart for him?
Yeah, he's been he's had a bunch of injuries, and he got the yips, which is a whole thing.
Yeah.
And he's just not there. His game's not there. You can make all the excuses in the world, but bottom line is he just doesn't have his game.
His mojo got stolen.
I used to think it'll be back, but I'm not so sure anymore.
No, it'll never be back at this point. Like, his mojo got stolen way back then, and sometimes you just gotta leave a guy to his devices, man, and you should have left him to his sex, drugs, and rock and roll, man.
Yeah. Well, if you're Elin Nordegren, you're okay with that?
Well, no, obviously not.
Well, then you don't leave him to his devices.
No, he got busted.
In more ways than one.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Anyway. Not to pick on Tiger Woods, but hey, I will say that I have never felt a moment of pity for the man. All self-inflicted. And I do feel like that sometimes when he's not having a good weekend at the course and he pulls out, like, I feel like he's just chickening out. Like, and he says, oh, he strained his back or something happened with his knees or his hip. I think a lot of times it's BS. He's just not feeling it. He knows he stinks, and he's just giving it a platitude reason why he can't play.
Oh, absolutely. And it's like super frowned upon in golf to do that. Like, lots of guys want to do that. Just like, my back hurts and I want to go home. Like, John Daly once famously hit all of his balls into the lake. Like, he just emptied his bag of balls. He's like, I'll try again. He did it like, I don't know how many balls, 9, 10 balls into the lake. He's like, oh, sorry, no balls left. I have to forfeit.
He follows me on Twitter.
John Daly?
Yep.
I'm not surprised. You're probably more famous than he is now.
He doesn't follow me at my Tumbling Saber account. He followed me years and years ago for some reason at my other account. I don't know why. I mean, he follows a lot of people. And if memory serves, we had an exchange, like a brief one. Anyway, there you go. I'm also followed by Tay Diggs, which is not a unique thing. I'm sure everybody listening is also followed by Tay Diggs. Anyway, so let's take a break here and hear from ads, and we'll come back and we'll do another round table.
Hello, chaps. So, firstly, great job on last week's question. Really enjoyed the three of you chatting about your favourite droids, and it was good to see other people on Twitter following that as well and making their own choices. I, this week, have done, I'm sure you've seen it, a Star Wars World Cup as a bit of fun, and I chose 48 different Star Wars characters, and there was a group phase, and then there was a last 16, a quarter-finals, a semi-final, and then a final. And it was random. I didn't select the pairings or the groups. It was all picked. But probably the two most iconic figures, you could argue, Vader and Luke got to the final and Vader won it. It got me thinking, and so my question this week, similar to last week's, what's your top 5 of all-time Star Wars characters? Have a good one, and I'll enjoy listening. Take care. Bye.
And there goes ads with another slobber knocker of a question. One of the all-time great barroom conversation questions. No, I guess there's no getting around it. This is a tough question to get to answering, although it's a fun one. So we'll do like we did last week. We'll round table this. We'll start at 5 and we'll go to 1. Corey, you'll kick it off this week. Your number 5. Jesus, man. We're going to put this on the record now. Top 5 Star Wars characters of all time. Corey, let's go, man. Let's get the show on the road. You're number 5.
Well, let's just first and foremost say that the list is always fluid, always moving.
Always
we don't know
what's
what's
the future.
Yeah, big time. And again, like this is a hard one. Like you said, one of the greatest debates of all time. Like I struggled with this one. It's just it's hard not to confuse things between iconic, nostalgia, even just allegiances that you have to these characters. Like it's hard to say something along the lines of, "Oh, I enjoy Hondo thoroughly. I love Hondo. He's one of my favorite characters when he's on screen.
He's
show
a
stealer.
scene stealer, yeah.
Yeah, scene stealer. But is he one of my favorite? Like, it's so hard to describe. But if we're gonna, it's so hard.
Okay,
okay,
get down to brass tacks, buddy.
Okay,
Yeah, let's
okay.
do it.
Listen, we'll just say there's no stupid answers, just stupid people. Okay, so you don't have to explain. You just have to go ahead and be yourself here.
I'm gonna do number 5, Yoda.
All right. I mean, do we need to give a little synopsis as to why?
Not really. I mean, it's Yoda. Like he's
Yoda
just
should be in everybody's top 5. I'm glad he's there.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, but you got a Wookiee in you is probably like your number 1 or 2, so like you got all kinds of things going on.
Okay. Yeah. Again, there's so many. Every one of these lists is going to leave somebody off of it. That you go, wow, that iconic character, that all-timer is not on your list. I mean, so big is Star Wars that is absolutely inevitable. So, James, who is your number 5?
I'm already starting, like Corey, of course, fluid is the key, and next week my answers could be different. But I think I could probably easily, or much more easily, tell you a top 10 in no particular order. There's like 10 characters that are like my favorite. And if I could put them in no particular order, that list would be easy-ish to create. But to narrow them down to 5 was very tough. I feel like I'm betraying people along the way.
Oh, and some people will go, okay, you're an idiot. How could you possibly say that? There will be those inevitable knee-jerk reactions, but yeah, that's the point of this. And that's why sometimes in my polls, I go pick one. You gotta make the hard choice.
Well, my first answer for number 5 is what's going to make people have that knee-jerk reaction. The rest of my list is more normal, although I have a major player off my list too. I won't announce it. You'll think he's coming and he'll never show up. But, so mostly for nostalgia factor, because growing up, we watched these movies a lot. My loophole for number 5 are Mace and Sindel, Tawani, or whatever their last name was.
Well, look at that. And that's purely because you enjoyed that movie as a child and it holds a special place in your heart.
Give me a second.
Yeah, all of the above. And it was one of the movies we owned, and I think maybe we owned 14 movies. So that one got watched a lot.
Hang on, I'm just logging on to Twitter right now. Hang on.
Oh no. Don't do it.
Unfollow James. And
I don't care. I don't care.
No, I mean that
courage,
is.
man.
I did not expect that, but you know what? I find that heartwarming, James.
No, that's just the way it goes.
Look at that. I got
a soft spot for him.
I'm really impressed by that answer. My number 5, making the list. She's only been around for a couple years, but Rey. She's cracking my top 5. Never have I left a theater so invested in a character after one flick. Like I'm just dying to find out what happens to her next. So she sneaks in at number 5. Corey, you're number 4. God. I mean, presumably you've written this list out, so you don't have to
I didn't have it numbered like James had said. Like I have my list, and I have my secondary list, and there's no real. It's so hard. Let's see, number 4. I'm gonna go with Luke. Luke was never my. As a kid, I think when I first watched Star Wars, Luke was the one I associated with when I was like 4, you know. And as I grew older, that changed. But
then you associated more with like Greedo.
Yeah, something like that. But no, just I think I'm looking more forward to the future now. In a way, so I'm kind of putting the chicken before the egg, but I don't know. I think there's big things in store for Luke, and I'm really I find myself super drawn to that character at the moment. So he's coming in at number 4.
Fair enough. There we go. James, number 4.
It's again. I could probably try to loophole this, but I won't. I'll just leave the Wookiee alone and just say Han. But like Han and Chewie are pretty much a package when I think about them. And you know, just the attitude, the cool clothes, gets the girl, and I don't know. I always liked everything about Han. He was just ultra cool. Sort of like had that vulnerability that everyone else saw in him except himself. Like
he's kind of like James Bond in space, but without the responsibility.
Yeah, and I don't know, there's something about, he had a unique, the way Harrison Ford played him, he had a unique sort of confidence where, like, everyone else could tell it was a bit of a sham, except, no, he couldn't tell that everyone could tell.
Yeah, no, he plays it with, like, an everyman swagger.
Yeah.
Like a false bravado type thing. But, yeah, no, I mean, again, most of these characters need no explanation, right?
Yeah, Han's just always been so cool that I didn't know where to put him on my list. That's where I'm sort of like Corey probably. I didn't know where to put my top 5 once I narrowed them down. It was hard to like put them in order.
Yeah, it's really tough. Thanks a lot, Ads. Look what you've done to us. All right, Corey, number 3.
I'm kind of.
Did you tell us your number 4?
Oh, you're right.
I don't think you did. You're right.
You
didn't.
My number 4 is Ahsoka Tano. Love me some Ahsoka Tano. And what put her over the top was her turn in Rebels. I liked her in the Clone Wars series, and she grew on me over time. But really, it was seeing the more mature, super powerful Ahsoka. That put her over the top. I love the character. I adore the character. So there she is. Ahsoka Tano, number 4 on my list.
Interesting.
Yes, indeed. It surprised me a bit, but I could not make a list and not have her on it. So there you go. Corey, number 3.
Interesting enough you said that, because my number 3 is Ahsoka Tano.
Huh.
Miss Ahsoka Tano. I just think, again, Rebels really sealed the deal in that regard. Her last story arc in the Clone Wars was a gem. Yeah, there's just so much more to this character now. The Mortis arc, what we've seen with the Converies and whatnot. I just think there's so much more to her story, and just what her character was in Rebels was really, really interesting to me. She was no Jedi. So just, yeah, I'm all about that right now. Who knows? Maybe in a year or 2 she'll be at number 10. You know,
or 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. All right, James, number 3.
Already named on your list. The only sort of non-classic character on my list, Rey, comes in at number 3.
There you go. Bravo.
Yeah, most of the same reasons you said. Plus, she's easy on the eyes. I'll say it.
That never hurts. That absolutely does not hurt her cause whatsoever. Corey, number 3.
Man. wasn't Ahsoka was my number 3, no?
Oh, right. I am going all over the place. All right. My number 3 is the Man in Black himself, Darth Vader. Love it. Just love that episodes 1 through 6. That's his story. And just, you think of Star Wars, you think of Darth Vader. The sound, the look, the big black suit, the helmet, the breathing. Darth Vader is synonymous with Star Wars to me. He's got to be there. And his whole entire arc, from slave boy to powerful Jedi, hero, to just scourge of the galaxy, and then back again. I think he's just a wonderful character for our time, and he just checks in on my list at the halfway point. Couldn't do this list without him. And to have him nestled next to Ahsoka, I think is fitting. So there you go. Darth Vader. Corey, you're number 2.
Yeah, here comes the first of 2, but here comes my first loophole, and it's going to be Vader, but Anakin as well. It's the Anakin Vader package.
It's not a loophole.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're on the same page, James.
That's one character.
I think before, if you had not said anything, I think Kyle would have called me out there, but
no, you can't. No, because I said from farm boy to Jedi hero and back to Scourge of the Galaxy and back again. So I'm talking about both.
Yeah, I'm down, man. I am down.
Though if Anakin never turned, he would not be on this list.
How do you know?
Okay, fine. Maybe the story would go differently, but it's really the suit that is first in my mind. All right, James, number 2. It's getting serious now.
It is getting serious. So, I was torn between a whole bunch of basically like Jedi Masters. And like, there's who I would most want to be my Jedi Master. There's like my class, my connection to like Obi-Wan from the first movie, the first Star Wars movie ever, that like love at first sight kind of thing. But in the end, I had to go with Yoda at my number 2.
The little green guy making a big impression.
Yeah, I think Qui-Gon would be the guy like I would want to be my Jedi Master. I think Obi-Wan was my first Jedi Master crush on. But Yoda's like, to me, always been the ultimate pinnacle Buddha of Jediism.
Including his little turn as a Ninja Turtle flipping around in Attack of the Clones?
If we don't talk about it, I don't have to remember it.
Yeah, well, hey, that's kind of like what Jin says in Rogue One, right? If something about you don't see the Imperial flags if you never look up.
There you go.
Yeah, hard to argue with Yoda. Hard to argue with anybody so far. Corey, number 2.
My number 1.
Oh wait, did I do my number 2?
No, you didn't.
Probably not. That's 3 times in a row.
It is.
Who's running this show?
Maybe I am starting to flag here a bit. No, my number 2 is Luke Skywalker. Tucked in there with Daddy. For me, like, this is the hero of our childhood. Everybody wanted to be Luke Skywalker, at least for a while. And then, maybe as you got a little bit older, you wanted to be Han Solo. But now you want to be Luke again. Luke's just taken this fascinating path from dopey farm boy to the Last Jedi. And it's been a fascinating journey, and there's going to be so much more to tell. Again, I just think the world of this character, and where would Star Wars be without Luke Skywalker? So that's it. That's my number 2. And now, it's the moment of truth. Maybe it's anticlimactic for some of us, because we know Corey's going to put Chopper at number 1. So let's hear him say it. Is that what he's going to do?
No, bro. No, I'm loopholing this one.
Oh, of course you are.
James actually already brought it up prior, and good on you, James, but Han and Chewie are a package for me, and that's the way it's going down, and That's it. They're number one.
I'm gonna leave ads as the arbiter for this one.
Yeah, I've already talked to him about it. Too bad.
I think if have you ever bought them as a set?
Like as in they came in the same package together?
Yeah.
Negative.
So I think if you can prove that you've bought them as a set, then your answer holds up in the Star Wars court. But if you haven't, then they're not one character.
That's an interesting point. I don't think they've ever been sold in a package together. I'm sure they have, but I can't think of one.
Maybe with the Falcon?
Wow, maybe.
He says hopefully. Oh, so okay, we'll do a little research. Ads is good at research, so we'll put him to task.
Well, regardless, that's my answer.
Corey's choice stands up. We hear your answer. We're just not sure if we're accepting it, Corey. That's all.
That's fine. You don't need to accept it. That's my answer.
Isn't it amazing how every single time we put questions to Corey, he cannot commit to an answer? He's got to find a way to like squeeze a little more out of the lemon that you can't. He's like a worm. You just can't pin him down.
No. You're
Incapable of making a tough choice.
I'm slippery, man.
Yeah, on that note, my number one is Qui-Gon Skywalker.
Yes! Yes!
That's
Luke.
Amazing.
I'm going to go Luke.
Luke topping the charts for you, James.
He
That's
topped it
amazing.
out for me. Yeah.
So I put him in at 2. Anything you want to throw on top of what I said about him?
I got nothing else to say. When I was a boy, I would always be Luke, so, that's got to be my choice.
He was just, he had just the guts to go stand up to Darth Vader being, like, half trained, right?
And half his size, and any broom handle I'd pick up would become my, lightsaber, and I was Luke Skywalker, so he's easily top of the list for me.
Yeah, and for me, you guys all know it, it's going to be Chewie. And maybe I'll slip in Han there too, because you can't take one without the other. But no, I'm not going to do that. It's Chewie. My number one's been Chewie for a long, long time, and it's weird because I can't sit here and tell you with a straight face that Chewie contributes more to the trilogy or the saga, for that matter, than any of these other characters. He's always sort of a secondary guy. He's never at the heart of the plot, but. What can I say? I love this Wookiee. I think I love him. What are you gonna do?
Hey, come on. I'm not gonna argue with you. I put Sindel and Mace on my list. So sometimes nostalgia plays a big role.
Yeah, I suppose so. And maybe it's the impression that Peter Mayhew made on me way back when I met him, that he was every bit as friendly and he was just everything you would hope that Chewbacca, the guy inside, would be. So yeah, there it is. There's our top 5s. And listen, none of us put Leia on this list. None of us, which is tough.
Why do I feel shameful now? I feel a bit of shame.
But again, who are you gonna bump, right?
But you know what? And you know what's funny is I thought about it. I'm like, am I just putting it on our list because of like, to be respectful of what just happened. So I don't know if she stayed off my list to avoid that. Like I don't know how much backroom politics my brain played on it, but I was aware of the fact that I was aware of the fact.
Me too. She's on my short list too, and I played the same things over and over again in my head. I was like, is it out of like respect or?
Yeah.
And look, we can say we love Leia. There's probably 10 more characters we can add to this list that we adore. And it's not a knock on any of those characters, just that these other ones, for one reason or another, speak to us a little more at this particular time. If Ads asks us this question a year from now, maybe she makes our list based on what we see in Episode 8.
That's it. Hey, don't feel bad, Princess. Vader is not on my list either.
Obi-Wan didn't make any of our lists, did he?
Nope. I was paying attention for that one.
Lando's not on our list, which I guess is less of a surprise. But there's a lot of characters that could be on anybody else's list. Boba Fett's not on our list. Anyway, again, this was fun. I like doing these, but it's tough, man. I don't know what would be tougher as far as asking Star Wars questions go. But I'm sure whatever it is, ads will figure it out and give it to us next week or the week after. But that's it, guys.
Thank you, ads.
Yeah,
again.
Thank you, sir. I love doing these. I actually had to take a drive today. I couldn't be around around people mulling this question over, so I went and took a little drive. Needed the mental breathing space. And that brings us to the end of the show. I'm glad we did this. I had fun recording this episode with you guys.
As
Always a blast.
All right, guys. So where can we find you guys on Twitter? Corey, where are you at?
You know I'm at Chop Rules with the Z.
Muy bueno. And James, where are you at?
Still at Tommy Bombadil 1.
Perfect. I'm at Tumbling Saber on the Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Come check me out. I'll definitely follow you back. As long as you're not a porn bot or one of those other weird things that don't actually do anything but piss people off. Yeah. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the show. A couple hours here. 2 more hours for your money. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to head over to iTunes and tell everybody how much you enjoyed it, we'd appreciate that. That really helps get some extra exposure for us when people hit up iTunes and look for Star Wars. The higher up on the list we are, the better off that we're going to be. And I'd also encourage you, if you're looking for more Star Wars content in your life, to go check out the Star Wars Commonwealth and its members, Talk Star Wars, Generation X-Wing, the Skyhoppers, the Nerd Room, and the Rogue Squadron podcasts. And other than that, stay tuned for Sith Disturbers later this week, dropping on Thursday or Friday. We're looking forward to recording that and getting you some funny stuff. And guys, this is the last podcast in our history that we won't have a copy of Rogue One in our hands. History is about to change. So that's it. Enjoy yourselves, guys. We will be back later this week with some fresh new content for you. And until then, we'll talk to you on the Twitter machine, and we'll see you soon.
Watching you walking away.